when growing up, did you also watch cartoons, play video games, or read comic books? For me, this was a big part of my childhood. The reason I was able to do all of this, to come across various stories through books and media, is also because of my parents, who allowed me and my sister to watch TV, play video games, or showed us the library. My dad in particular also has liked video games since he was young. He plays 3D Tetris to this day. And because his birthday was coming up and I wanted to explore some nostalgic fandoms, I thought, why not draw my dad in different art styles with a focus on these childhood fandoms. Hi, I'm May, and that's what today's video will be about, drawing my dad in 10 different art styles. What can we learn from these styles and adapting to art styles in general? How do our childhood fandoms and interests influence us today? What can we learn from the media, stories, characters, and fandoms we come across? Those are some questions I'd also like to explore today. And before we start with the first art style, I'm happy to say that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. On Skillshare you can find many classes focusing on different areas such as art, business, or social media. It's the best place to learn a creative skill or pick up a new hobby. If you're looking to reconnect with your creativity and maybe avoid brain rot, Skillshare is where humans come to learn from other humans. I recently took the class Find Your Style, 5 Exercises to Unlock Your Creative Identity by Andy J. Pisa. I've listened to his podcast Creative Pep Talk before and was excited to get the opportunity to learn from him in a more practical way. During the class, you do things like making mood boards, reflecting on them, and drawing exploratory pieces to define your own style. It was a very insightful process. As someone who has been exploring art styles for many years now, the aspects Andy mentioned were very interesting. I've mostly studied other artists' work in the past, and the strong focus on my own personal backstory and how this contributes to my personal style, those are some aspects that any artist could benefit learning from to me. So I definitely recommend the class, and there are many more classes which I would look forward to exploring. If you would also like to give Skillshare a try, the first 500 people to use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. I've heard about Skillshare and many other videos from artists I like in the past. It means a lot to collaborate with them. Now back to the video. The first art style will be a very nostalgic one for me. It's based on a series I used to watch on the kids channel called Kika. The show is called just like the main character in it, Wiki. Wiki as a character isn't defined by strength, but by thinking ahead and understanding situations. In the series, he often solves problems by observing details that others overlook, which seems to reflect the value of insight in real life. It's not just about knowing something, but about noticing patterns and connections that aren't immediately obvious. For me, this is something I try to apply in my own life as well, taking a step back and analyzing before acting. Especially when working on projects or ideas, insight helps to avoid unnecessary mistakes. This style reminds me that thinking deeply and understanding situations can often be more effective than reacting quickly. Now for the second art style. This one is based on my favorite movie of all time. It's by DreamWorks and it focuses on different childhood hero figures such as the Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, Sandman, and Santa. The movie here is called Rise of the Guardians. Let me know if you have seen it as well, and if you have, who would be your favorite character there? What I connect with in this movie, especially in relation to faith, is the idea that belief can give something real meaning and strength. In the movie, the characters only seem to exist because people believe in them, which makes faith something active rather than passive. To me that's interesting because in everyday life, believing in something, whether it's a goal, a value, or even yourself, can influence how you act and what you're able to achieve. It's not always about having proof first, but about trusting that something matters. I try to apply that by committing to things even when the outcome isn't guaranteed yet. This style is a reminder that belief can shape reality more than we sometimes expect. The third art style would be, well, not necessarily an art style. Here I drew my dad as a cat. We have 2 cats at home, and a while back I asked my family members what fur color they'd like to have if they were a cat. Of course, I used this to determine what fur color my dad would have here. If you were a cat, what fur color would you like to have? For this style, I thought connecting it to the value of solitude made sense because animals, especially cats, often represent independence and being comfortable on their own. Solitude to me isn't about being isolated, but about having space to think and reset. In everyday life, it can be easy to constantly be surrounded by input, whether it's people, media, or tasks. Taking time alone allows you to process things more clearly and focus on what actually matters. This can be something that's often underestimated. The drawing here reminds me that being on your own can actually be something positive and necessary. It creates a space where ideas, reflection and clarity can develop. As a fourth art style, we have a 3D animated movie, which was quite difficult to draw to me as someone who mostly makes use of lines while drawing. This was also the case for the Rise of the Guardians art style before. The movie here is Despicable Me. I've watched it with my family a few times and it has this kind of funny or interesting shape language when it comes to the characters. So I decided to take a chance at trying to draw in this style. By the way, I also played this smartphone game called Minion Rush, which works similarly to Subway Surfers or Temple Run for some time. That's also something I connect to this fandom. What I find interesting about the Despicable Me style is how distinct and unconventional the character designs are. They don't try to look perfect or realistic, but instead exaggerate features in a way that makes each character memorable. That's why I connected it to uniqueness. In the movie itself, Gru is also a character who doesn't fit the typical hero role, but that's also what makes his development meaningful and intriguing. This may reflect something important in real life, that standing out or being different isn't something negative. In fact, it can be what makes someone valuable or interesting. I like keeping that in mind, especially when working creatively. Not everything has to follow a standard to be good. Next up is a style you probably know, Disney, but here I had many different options to go for, as the art style of the media from Disney has evolved a lot over the years, from 3D to 2D, and each movie can have its own unique stylistic characteristics as well. I decided to go for a 2D style here, since that's what I myself connect most with my childhood. Maybe you would also like to guess which Disney movie in particular I mostly used as art style inspiration for this drawing here. With Disney, especially the older 2D movies, I mainly connected to Hope because of the way the stories are structured. Even when characters face difficult situations, there's always a sense that things can improve. That doesn't mean everything is easy, but there's a clear direction toward a positive outcome. I think hope in this sense is not just wishful thinking, but continuing forward despite uncertainty. In everyday life, that can mean trusting that effort will lead somewhere, even if it's not immediately visible. It can be something important to hold on to. This style reminds me of that kind of steady optimism. Art style number 6, similarly to Disney before, would also be one with some princess themes. Although in this version the focus is not on the princess, this art style here is Barbie Life in the Dream House. There are many Barbie movies where Barbie appears as a princess, which I also watched during my childhood, but in Barbie Life in the Dream House, she can take on many roles. I really like this series, and we even watched it as a family when we were in Moldova during the holiday season. What I connect with here is how flexible and creative everything is in this series. The world doesn't follow strict rules, and situations can change in unexpected and sometimes absurd ways. That's why I associated it with imagination. Barbie Life in the Dream House shows that not everything has to be realistic to be meaningful or enjoyable. In everyday life, imagination can be useful for problem solving, creativity, and even just seeing alternatives that aren't obvious at first. For me, it's important to allow space for that kind of thinking. This style reminds me that being creative and open to unusual ideas can lead to interesting results. Moving on to the next art style, this one is connected to a board game. The game is about describing one or multiple pictures using one word, and your team members have to guess which picture or pictures you meant. It's a nice riddle game that's called Codenames Pictures. We've played it in the family a bunch of times, which was fun, and the cards for the two different teams that play against each other in this game have some character illustrations, which I used as the style reference here. This style connects to focus because the entire game is built around paying attention to details and making precise connections. You have to think carefully about how words relate to images, and even small differences can change the meaning. Codenames pictures may reflect focus in a very practical way. It's about being present and intentional with your thinking rather than rushing through things. In everyday situations, this can mean concentrating fully on one task instead of trying to do everything at once. That's why this style reminds me of the importance of clear and concentrated thinking. As 8th art style, I chose to draw my dad as a car. It's very inspired by the Cars movie's art style. That movie just immediately comes to my mind when personifying cars, since I also watched it multiple times. But mainly, I wanted to turn my dad into a car, similarly to how I drew him as a cat before for this drawing. I actually also sometimes think of the lighters at the front of a car as eyes, but here I decided to stick to the Cars-inspired car anatomy. When I asked my family members about what color they'd like to be as a cat, I actually also asked them what color they'd like to be if they were a car, and I'm a bit surprised that my dad chose such a vibrant color, neon green in particular, but it would definitely be easier to find that car in a parking house, for example. By the way, I don't drive a car, I don't have a license because I chose to instead only use public transport, partly because of environmental factors, because of the cost. And finally, I just much prefer being able to do something as I am driven instead of driving myself. I often write scripts or critique artworks during my public transport travels, so I appreciate this option. How is the public transport situation where you live? Could you easily travel to essential locations? I'm grateful that this is the case for me, and I hope this way of traveling gets improved upon across the world. For this style, I connected it to efficiency, partly because cars themselves are designed for a very specific purpose, getting from one place to another as effectively as possible. The design of a car and a lot of machinery in general is all about function, structure, and optimization. To me, that reflects efficiency quite well. In everyday life, efficiency doesn't mean rushing, but rather doing things in a way that avoids unnecessary effort. For example, organizing tasks or using time in a structured way can make things much easier. I try to apply that when working on projects or planning things, having set times in the day where I focus on different tasks, a daily routine. This drawing is a reminder that structure and function can make things more manageable. Art style number 9 would be one that I didn't know from my childhood. The first Ghibli movie I ever watched was in 2021, when I was already an adult. I only started getting more interested in anime art styles in 2020. My childhood was mostly filled with media and other styles. With Ghibli movies in particular, when it came to drawing my dad, I had to think about How the Wind Rises, which focuses on airplanes, something my dad really likes. He used to build these model airplanes using styrofoam, for example, and to this day he still likes to watch videos about this topic from time to time. He also works as an engineer, which connects a bit to this as well. With Ghibli, what stands out to me is the calm atmosphere in many of the scenes. Even when something is happening, there's often a sense of stillness and balance. That's why I connected it to serenity. It's not about nothing happening, but about how things are experienced more slowly and thoughtfully. In everyday life, it's easy to feel rushed or overwhelmed, so having moments of calm is important. Ghibli movies tend to capture that feeling really well. It reminds me to slow down and approach things with a more steady mindset. Being calm and serene can help to make everything else clearer. For the final art style, we have one with a focus on space and space travel. It's also something I connect to my father a bit. I remember discovering a really old painting from my dad with a spaceship that was mesmerizing to me. Space travel is also a bit connected to airplanes, and my dad used to play games like Space Invader or Galaga when he was younger as well. I myself really like music from Sleeping at Last and Starset, which also has space-connected themes. The fandom here that includes this astronomy, space and science kind of theme would be Voltron. I only discovered it in 2022 after Ghibli. I like how there seems to be a bit of a chronological order in how I mention the art styles here. When it comes to Voltron, the series is based on an older cartoon, which I haven't seen. I focused on the version I have watched, the Voltron Legendary Defender series by DreamWorks here. Something I connect with Voltron is how much the team depends on understanding each other. Each character has their own personality, struggles and way of thinking, and they can only work effectively when they take this into account. That's why I associated it with empathy. It's not just about working together, but about understanding where the other person is coming from. In everyday life, that can make communication and cooperation much easier. Additionally, empathy can help to prevent misunderstandings while improving relationships overall. This style reminds me that understanding others is just as important as expressing your own perspective. In this video, I talked a lot about themes or topics related to the 10 art styles I included. What I'm showing here is more of a visual style guide, which I created for each style based on my own observation and experience of drawing in the style. This is an idea I got from taking the Skillshare class mentioned at the start of the video. One of the exercises involved creating such visual style reference sheets. As an example, I liked this idea a lot and tried applying it here. And that is one of the many reasons why I recommend Skillshare and the class I took on it. Which of these styles do you like most visually? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to support me in some way, feel free to check out my Patreon, where you can find screen-recorded process videos of my art and more. Other than this, leaving a like on this video and subscribing would also mean a lot. Thank you for watching, have a nice day, bye.